Hello and welcome to the Playtime with Rufus podcast with me, Mario Radinger. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my transformative soul journeys quantum hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy to follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 26 of Playtime with Rufus, a spiritual and metaphysical podcast unlike any other. As always, I'm your host Mario and I love knowing you're here with Rufus, Èmilie and me once more. Today is a very special one because this is not just another episode, this is the season finale. Well, we actually have one more episode coming in 2 weeks, a bonus episode, so to speak, in which you will have the pleasure of meeting Èmilie, the body and voice of Rufus. So there will be an episode 27, but this here today is the final conversation with Rufus in season 1. Of course, that does not mean the journey is over, far from it. It does mean, however, that we have reached the natural closing point of this first cycle of conversations. And I have to say, you will probably feel that in today's exchange, because it has the feeling of both a wrap-up of the entire last year and a threshold into the next phase. First, we begin with a fascinating little side path about space, energy, and the effects of the fact that Èmilie and I were both in different environments when we recorded this session. Then the conversation opens into much bigger stuff. What it means to bring this first chapter to a close, what has really been explored over the course of this season, and how all of it is meant to be brought back into everyday life. But Rufus doesn't use this conversation to simply summarize the many mind-bending concepts and fascinating nuggets of wisdom we have touched upon in the last year. No, Rufus brings everything back to practical application, which, if you remember, is very much in line with our original agenda for this first season. How do you actually live this material? Where do you begin if all of this still feels big or overwhelming? What can one single avatar really do when looking at the state of the world? The violence, the manipulation, the power structures, the destruction of nature, and the collective feeling that so much is out of our hands. Without wanting to spoil anything, Rufus's answers to these questions are both deeply empowering and also challenging in a way, because they speak to our sense of awareness, responsibility, and honesty towards ourselves. We also touch on something that I feel is especially important in this time: how to care for our beloved planet without slipping into inauthenticity, guilt, overwhelm, or performance. That part in particular feels incredibly relevant. And while Rufus's answer may sting a little, I have no doubt that it will resonate with many of you. And finally, before this first season closes, Rufus leaves us with a beautiful message for everyone who has been willing to come along for this journey, listen with an open mind and heart, and try to better themselves. And through that, the playtime itself. So, if you've been with Rufus, Èmilie, and me throughout this first season, from the bottom of our hearts, and non-physical hearts, I should say, thank you so much for your trust and your company. And if you're just joining us here at the end of this first chapter, you now know that you have an entire season to binge watch or listen to. You're in for a treat. And now, take one more deep breath, open your mind and heart, and enjoy this season finale of Playtime with Rufus. This is episode 26 of Playtime with Rufus, where higher wisdom meets human curiosity. And now I would like to ask Rufus to integrate themselves into the body so we can speak to each other again. May I speak to Rufus again, please?
Yes.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you, Maria. 1 second.
Yes. It's wonderful to have you back with us. It's been a little while.
It has been for you.
Right. And Èmilie and I are both in different environments today. And I was wondering, does that make any difference energetically for you?
It always make a difference, energetically speaking, because the energy in a specific location will be proper to its like to this specific location. So in terms of energy, yes, it is quite different, but is it a problem for us to come within this new energy? Not at all. This doesn't matter. We are not attached to a specific place or a specific room in order to come and converse with you guys. So there is no issue on our part. But to answer fairly your question, of course, the energy is different. So energetically speaking, yes, it is not quite the same.
Mm-hmm. All right. Just to clarify for the listeners, Èmilie is in a different room in her house today. She usually does these sessions in her little one's room.
Yeah. We do
And
love the ones now.
right. And today she is in her bedroom. And I am in a completely different house because I moved places. And I was wondering, could you, Rufus, describe in words how the energies are different for you, if that's possible?
Yes. Well, let's say, remember everything has an energy, right? Everything is vibration in your realm. So therefore, just the colors that you put in the room or the texture or the object or the way you are placing your furniture and the way it's forcing somehow the flux to go, if we may use that term, the lightning, the open windows or door, basically where you're facing when you are sitting or laying there. So all of this matters somehow to create what you will call maybe we do not like that term, but let's say a vortex or a climax of a specific energy or coding vibration, if you prefer. And we have to not only come into the vessel, but also come within the place that the vessel is located at the time, correct? So
Right.
therefore, all of those data put together will require us to, of course, adjust to those data. Because when we are coming into Emily's vessel and she is laying in a place that we are used to, which is the little one's room, if we may say, and it has a lot of known component, and therefore, let's say, even if it's different each and every time because of the other layers involved, and we're not going to cover it because we could go a long way with this. But let's say there is a thread, like a common thread to the place, right? Energetically speaking. So we are knowing where we are coming, if we may say. And therefore, it's not easier, but it's just more familiar to us. And we are aware of what needs to be done on our part to come and use the vessel in this location. This one was a new place. So therefore, first we were a little surprised to come into that place, but then we were like, okay, this is new. We just need to adjust a little bit of our frequency, but it's no big deal because we are still dealing with the same vessel, the same host, and it's still somehow the same location as in house. So
Mm-hmm.
it has somehow a familiar energy let's say, thread again, because this is obviously Emily's house. So it obviously has the whole family that we are familiar with now, energy going on in each and every room, although each and every room has its own somehow arranged set of data, of information, of vibration rate, if we may use. So therefore, the energy is quite different. And obviously, this is not a child room. So obviously, there is also a, let's say, a load of more presence in terms of not so carefree vibration, right? Like the when you go into little one's room, somehow you could feel that innocence energy where it's less involved within the multiple layers of the being at a dramatic standpoint, let's say that. And
Mm-hmm.
when you go into Emily's room, which is more of a grown-up room, which probably there are a lot of maybe thinking or planning or rationing or a lot of energy that deal with adult somehow responsibility, then we would not say it's heavier because this is not an appropriate term. But to picture you something, the energy is not as playful or as innocent or as well, we're gonna use that word light, sorry, that it could be in the kids' room, but it's completely understandable because it is not inhabited by the same vessel, and therefore it doesn't have the same organization of data, and it doesn't transpire those data. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
So, how would it affect our venue and our conversation? To be honest, we would not believe this will be dramatically influencing what will be said. It might sometimes influence the way we deliver it just because we could deliver it more in a childhood way or like let's say playful way when we are inspired by the location and the given information we are sharing. But this room, let's say, seems to be a little more serious, if we may use that term. And perhaps what we are gonna transpire or let's say take in and reject or put back out in terms of information could be seen a little more serious. We don't know, but for us, this will not be our intention to start with, and it will be just how we are getting the codes and the information and integrating them and put them right back out. Because remember, we are in a vessel, so we also dealing with this kind of, how can we call that? Not training, but way of being for the time that is given to us for the conversation. So the way the human vessel operates, which is gathering information, take them all in, digest, integrate, whatever you want to call it, and then put them back out somehow, even if we are coming with our own set of information for this conversation, we are also submitted to this role, correct? Because we
Mm.
are now somehow materializing within Emily's vessel, within her bedroom, within her house, and therefore we are also submitting ourselves to getting the set of information that is present here and having to deal with it in order to put it right back out. So, even if we are, let's say, aware of how this whole game is, it doesn't mean that we are exempt of playing it once we are using the body, right? It's fair. We have also to submit ourselves to this. So, all of this together will probably have an impact, but we would say minimalistic impact just because we are kind of cheating because we are aware and we understand how this is working so we can somehow bend it, if we may say, a little more than if we were just a human playing the realm. Yes, but it will somehow have a slight impact on the conversation. we could not say it doesn't.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. Thank you for explaining. We'll see
Yeah.
if it's noticeable or not
All right. And
to
you
us.
tell us.
You just mentioned that the fact that you're coming through the same host, the same vessel, makes it quite easy for you. And that actually reminded me of a question I've been wanting to ask you for quite a while, but it always eluded me. I forgot about it. Maybe it's a good time to ask it now.
Yes. What is it?
You may remember or know that Seth,
Yes.
who came through Jane Roberts, he stated famously at the time that in order to protect the integrity of the material that was given by him, he would not come through any other vessel or host
Yes.
to keep people from, pretending that they are receiving the same.
Yes. We can hear your question already. Yes.
Yes. I was wondering, how do you feel about it? How would you like to handle this?
Well, to our knowledge, this would apply to pretty much every what you call transmitter, right? Because, okay, we might go around a little bit like, us, we like to explain it as much as we can. So, when you are using a vessel to transmit, especially in our case, and most of the cases, because most of the transmission that are actually genuine transmission, they are not coming just from what you will call one entity. Somehow, in your level, I mean, at your level, you'll be considering this as a bigger self, right? So the bigger self will englobe more self than you're actually defining self. Does that make sense so far?
Right. It
Okay.
does.
Yes. So in order to go through a specific vessel, then you would need to have what you would call like multiple selves or collectives, or we give ourselves the name of Rufus, and Seth will be Seth. But basically, this will match somehow several or multiple kind of self or higher self, as we're using self as human describes self. Yes. So for human, self is a human. Yes. So when we're saying multiple, we're just saying that it will be englobing multiple self if it was a human level. Because it's not a human level, then basically the self is bigger than what you would qualify as self. Is that clear?
It is.
Okay, so therefore, in order to make sure we're using the same reference as you, which is self, we will define it as a multiple, yes, or as a
Yes.
collective. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So basically, what we are, or what Seth is, or what any transmitter could feel once the being that is willing to come transmit is coming, is a bigger representation of vibration or of energy being, of non-incarnated being. So, in function of the vessel you're going to enter, and in function of the human person you're going to speak through, then it's a particular set of this collective or this new entity, if we may say. Yes, a particular set is tailor-made to whatever vessel you're going to enter to transmit in order to make sure that the transmission can happen correctly. Yes. So
Okay.
therefore, you could have, let's say, if today Rufus is coming to transmit her Èmilie, then you could have a similar aspect, but that would not be the exact recipe of the Rufus you're having today transmitting through a different vessel, just because the Rufus you're having today is tailor-made to the vessel Èmilie. Does that make sense?
I think I understand.
Okay, so it doesn't mean that you would not have a similar aspect or similar being. Let's say if we're dividing the collective, yes, you've been knowing us at least with multiple different aspects. So let's say we're going to pick 4 just for the sake of being, right? So let's say if today you're having a collective of 4, we're more, but 4 is okay. Well, a collective of 4 that is coming and transmitting through the vessel called Èmilie in your realm, then you could have maybe one of that mingling with others, yes, and go transmit through another vessel, but you would not be having the same exact coding of being, or how can we say that, like collective of being that we are now going through another vessel, just because it is specific to the vessel in question. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, so to answer your question, we are in complete agreement with what Seth is saying, just because what we mentioned, it is tailor-made to the host, but at the same time, it is possible to have parts of us going through a different vessel, but it would not be the same. It would participate to feeding a new collective and then to messaging and to create a set of information that will be transmitted. It would participate, but it would not be fully the same energy. Is it clear?
I think so. I assume that means that the name we have been using, Rufus, only applies to the specific constellation
Yes.
coming through Èmilie.
Yes, because when you asked us what name we could use, then we said that Rufus will be the one matching somehow the frequency that collectively we are shaped. Yes. And this is tricky because we are in your realm, so we have to use the idea of multiple. But if you are based on a different realm, then we are not multiple. But based on your realm, we are. Yes. So for
Right.
the sake of it, you could say that we're plural, and the mingling of our own frequency, if we were thinking of each aspect of us, would mingle together and will be resonating with Rufus. If you're taking one aspect of this out, or if you're switching, or if you're altering somehow the energy amongst us within our entity, then it would not resonate the same with the word Rufus. It would have to pick a different word to represent and to be in resonance with the new kind of like energy pot being created.
Right. That
Does
makes sense. It does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
explaining that. In the light of this, you mentioned you are more than 4.
Based on what you are perceiving it as.
Okay. Is it possible that in the future we get to meet some of the other aspects?
Well, it is always possible, but remember, this is a two-way street because we have somehow to know how to manipulate the matter, to manipulate the what you call tangible or what you call materialistic in order to use the vessel properly and speak through Emily's body. Some of us will participate actively to the essence or to what the meaning of the message or what is carried, but would not be able to somehow physically activate what needs to be activated within the body in order to speak out. Does that make sense?
I see. Yeah.
So yes, you could have actually conversation with any aspect of us that is actually willing and able to manipulate Emily's body in order to get words out of it. And sometimes some of us or aspect of ourself is, let's say, fairly new to this or maybe unable to somehow manipulate manipulate the physical, right? So even if the messages is sent by this aspect through the vessel, then another aspect will need to activate the vessel in order to speak it out.
Right.
Do you follow?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yes, but it doesn't mean that this is forever this way. You could probably be having like different aspects at different time of your realm speaking through this body. It will probably be different lengths also of speaking. Some of us will be comfortable speaking for quite a while. Some of us will be less comfortable and maybe speak for just few minutes or a few seconds or just a glimpse of it, it is completely possible. We're not saying it's impossible, but it's just more efficient for us to have the one that are, let's say, well rounded with how to manipulate the body and get some words out.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we appreciate that because it helps us be efficient with these conversations as well.
Yes, this is what we are all aiming for, right? To be somehow not wasting your time, because on our end, you know how it is, but not wasting your time so we can get the messages out and delivered in the best way possible. Because sometimes, I mean, you could have, and maybe this happened to you in session, you could have messages sent, and then the host will be like this. Yeah, but a lot has been actually said. A whole lot has been said. But unless you are able to telepathically communicate with that host, then you would not get the messages because the host will actually download it, but it would not be activating the physicality of it that needs to be activated in order to speak it out.
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, that said, I want all the other aspects to know that they're all welcome. And even if one of them just wants to dip their toe into, speaking physically, they're more than welcome to do that. I remember we've been experiencing a spectrum with the 4 aspects we know so far. And the one we call the newbie
Yes.
has been taking only short amounts of times. And that was perfectly fine with us. So they're all welcome.
Yes. Will receive. Thank you very much.
And in the context of this topic, I would like to mention that Èmilie and I, we still plan to reach out to, I don't want to say a higher level Rufus, but I think we've talked about this before, and you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yes. A higher density, I guess, aspect of Rufus.
Yes.
At some point, we would like to try reaching out and see what comes through.
Yes. With pleasure.
All right. There's another element to this session today that makes today's conversation special, not just the different environments we're in, but also that this is the final episode of the first season of Playtime with Rufus. So we're concluding a journey today. It doesn't mean that it's going to end. We plan on continuing this work with you, Rufus, if you're up for it.
We are.
Wonderful. But the first cycle, so to speak, is coming to an end today.
Okay.
And we feel that this is a natural thing that is happening because you may remember that we set out to explore a certain agenda in the beginning. And I feel that we have done that. We have reached a natural closing point.
Perfect. On to the next one.
Sorry, say that again.
On to the next one.
On to the next one, for sure. And I already have a list of topics that I would like to explore with your help.
Yes.
And so the second season is already standing.
Perfect.
But I would love to use today to finish up the topics we have been talking about and give you the opportunity to tie up any loose ends.
Okay.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you.
It's lovely to have you come in today as well.
Thank you, Mario.
And you may remember that we started out with the intention of clearing up the vision of being a human, an avatar in this playtime, right?
Yes.
Because you mentioned in the first episode, I believe, that this vision has been distorted quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that this playtime has been, unfortunately, more endured instead of being played.
Yes.
And so we went through a couple of topics and aspects that would help all those listening to this material to come back into playing, right? Come back into enjoying this playtime as it was meant to. We explored the element of being a player or an avatar while also knowing that we're more than that
Yeah.
outside of this playtime. We explored the different layers. And as you mentioned at the time, there are many more, but we explored, I believe, the most essential ones, correct?
Yeah. For the time being, this is what we are believing so.
Wonderful. We explored factors that could be described as outside influences, meaning environment, nature, objects, things like that.
Yeah.
We explored the effects of the connections between players
Yes.
or avatars, I guess I should say, to stay in line with the terms we've been using.
Yes. We understand what you are aiming for.
And in the most recent episodes, we were focusing on the rules of the game.
Yes.
And you mentioned as well that there are many more, but I believe we focus on the most pertinent ones or the ones that are most influential.
Yes. And the ones that are, let's say, best to start with and get proper understanding.
Right.
And too much information at once because it will be counterproductive, as we believe.
Yes, I agree. And I appreciate the wonderful balance that you have found here in providing a lot of information, but not overloading the listener with too much.
We tried our best.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I would like to start with the following question. I believe that it was made apparent during our conversations how the, let's call it theoretic information or knowledge that was shared can be applied in our everyday life. I think you did a great job at providing a lot of real life examples in order to do that. What would you like to say to those out there who may have been listening to the material and feel that they may not know yet how to apply all this information? Where would you recommend to start with looking at the amount of information that we have been receiving?
Well, the beginning for us will be always the same. First, one needs to recognize that there is more than just one can see or sense or feel that they are. If they can agree to this, that they are way bigger than just their, let's say, human aspect, this is already a win for everything else. This is the core starter for everything else. And this means not just say, I know I am more than just a human, but it's also to embrace it and apply it daily. Meaning, if you know that you are more than just a human, you also know that everybody else is more than just a human. Therefore, you understand multidimensionality of yourself and of others, and therefore, you also understand that others are more like you than you tend to believe, because you are all somehow linked together
you are all coming from somehow the same energy, the same living being that is not just human. This will be the best way to start because applying this is already quite a challenge. It would means that you will learn to be respectful and kind of yourself and therefore respectful and kind to others as well, but somehow know how to set boundaries and decide that you could have your own way of manifesting a life and the others could have their own way of manifesting a life or playing this game. And if this way is not matching your way or your way is not matching their way, then this is still okay because you are all more than just yourself playing a game together. And in order to play this game, a lot of diversity is needed. This may seem like nothing when we say, accept that you are more than just a human, and this may seem obvious and easy for plenty of you guys. But if you really truly think about it, this is also not that easy to apply because it means you have to really apply it daily if you truly believe that this is accurate. Do you know what we are saying?
Yes, I do.
And sometimes the most obvious and easiest step is also the biggest and the most difficult. Because if you are a believer of being more than just a human, then you are also accepting this multidimensionality. Then you are also accepting your complexity. Then you are also accepting others' complexity and also accepting that the interaction of everything created around you has to be somehow respected and meaningful. Therefore, you have to also understand that because of this multidimensionality, everything that you would somehow experience in this life will affect others. In the same way, everything that others will experience in this life will affect you. Therefore, you are also accepting the fact that you can never really exist alone, or do stuff alone, or make stuff alone, or live alone, for you being part of a whole. So see, the simple way of saying I am more than just a human is actually somehow englobing everything we've talked about. Because if you really truly believe that you are more than a human, you understand the multidimensionality aspect of everything and you understand the complexity and you understand the layers and you understand the interaction with everything that is alive or not because everything carries vibrations in your game. So this simple statement is in fact well enough to start and try to apply. If you are living your life every day knowing that you are more than just a human, applying this, start with being mindful when you are actually interacting with life itself, interacting with your everyday, interacting with others, with your surrounding. Start being mindful of where your own, let's say, set of information start and stop, when your own capacity of receiving and integrating information coming from outside stay. Because sometimes you think that you can absorb and take everything and you're expecting of yourself to be able to somehow interpret data as much as you wish you could. But sometimes when you really understand that everything is taking information in and put them back out, then you will also admit to yourself that at one point you need a pause. You need to make sure that everything you took in take time to be processed in order to be put back out in a way that is actually resonating with you. And all of this is just linked to the simple fact that you're in agreement with the statement, I am more than just a human. So let's say the main advice we could give you is to pace yourself. You will not be able to apply everything at once. It will take time in your realm. It will take time to be somehow digested in its own application. Meaning, today I acknowledge I am more than just a human. Therefore, I acknowledge my multidimensionality and the one that is true for others as well. So next thing I want to do is recognize what is being exchanged, what is being taken, what is being put back out, and be okay with the fact that nothing can be done completely, fully, or exactly correctly in a first try. That everything will probably take time in order to be applied correctly according to our own self as a human. So being gentle regarding your own expectation of what is applying to you will be also a very good advice to give if you understand what we are saying.
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes when we are learning stuff, we feel like, oh, this is resonating so much with me. I would like to apply it right away. And I would like to be living this exactly how I understand it to be. But the way we understand things and the way we are applying could be very different, because when you are starting applying stuff, it's not involving you only anymore. When you are understanding stuff, somehow, even if your ability to understand has been conditioned by more than just you as a human, we talked about this before, so we're not going to go back on this. But even if your ability to understand is related to many, 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 the moment you do understand is up to you. This is internally done. This is processed with your own mind and your own aspect of being able to collect, rationalize, understand, integrate, feel data. So it's internal. But when you want to apply it, that means you are now projecting this into your life. And therefore, you're projecting this out. The information you collected is now coming back out. This is what applying is. The treatment of information that you digested and integrated that you are now ready to put back out. But because you are putting this out of yourself, you are now offering this to everybody and everything surrounding yourself. Meaning, wanted to apply something and being able to fully apply it the way we intended can be quite challenging at times, because you are now submitting yourself to the reception, the acceptance of information of others. Does that make sense?
It does.
So applying is an amazing, amazing thing to do, but also try to be gentle with yourself if your intention of applying is not completely successful at first, because you're not dealing with just you. You're also dealing with everything else in this game that you're connected to, because applying is putting back out. Yes?
Right.
So this is also an advice that we would give. You can want, desire, and intend to apply new learning or new information that you integrated, but your expectation of how this application should look like might be challenged more than once. It might be more difficult than what your intention is, just because you're gonna be confronted to the world pretty much. What you can do in order to serve yourself at this point is being okay with this. Telling yourself, okay, I understand, I learned, I want to apply it, I intend to apply it this way. But if my way is not met right away, I'm okay with it. I will be creative and I will find another way to keep pushing and keep applying it until I can actually be satisfied with the way this application is turning. Does that make sense?
It does.
Other than that, we do not want to tell you what to do, because there is so many ways of playing this game and so many ways of expressing yourself and expressing everything that you are resonating with, that it would not be fair for us to tell you what to do. We could point out some pictures or some example, or tell you that starting this way might be a good start, but there is no right or wrong answer. Everything starts with the fact that if you are in resonance with this statement, that you are more than just a human, let's say that you are more than just your body and your thoughts, this is where everything begins. Then the way you're gonna apply and play with it, all we can invite you to do is, please, once you know that, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with your expectations and be gentle with the others as well. Does that make sense?
It does a lot.
That's pretty much everything we could advise at this point, because it has to be general and not tailor-made for each individual. We believe that this is actually the starter point of everything, and that this will be very, let's say, well perceived from your player self if you were able to start applying without being too frustrated on your application not meeting the intention that you had when you decided to apply yourself. Is it okay like this?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think you've been providing a wonderful starting point for those who may have needed a bit more guidance or inspiration.
Yes, we are glad we did.
And I love that all the different aspects are making an appearance today.
Yeah, we are trying our best. to show for you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome. It's not that easy.
Well, don't strain yourself. Don't stress yourself if that is even an option.
Not really. More stressing the body.
Okay. Well, I know you watch out for Emily's comfort, so I know nothing will happen.
Nah, she'll be good.
Excellent. You just mentioned that the knowledge or the application of the knowledge will naturally be challenged in this playtime by the entire playtime.
Yes.
And that makes a lot of sense. And this reminded me of something that I've been encountering quite often in my work and also in communicating with listeners of this podcast. A lot of questions that are coming in are about the global state, so to speak, of this playtime, the way that things are going and happening right now collectively. For example, the many conflicts and wars that are going on, natural catastrophes, the so-called destruction of the planet, and also from the individual avatar standpoint, the feeling of being powerless when being confronted with governments or power structures that are quite invasive or controlling or manipulating. What advice do you have for those who feel powerless in the face of all that? Even though the material that you've been giving us, I feel, is very empowering. So how can this feeling of being powerless be navigated in today's world or in the current state of the playtime?
Well, you're playing a game that it has somehow hierarchy in places, right? It's not a game
Mm-hmm.
that is linear, meaning like everybody is playing with the same rules. Unfortunately, you have the general rules that are shaping your game, but you also have within the game the rules that have been somehow created by other avatars playing, right? And other
Right.
groups or institution that has been put into motion. And over the time, because you're regulating with time, then this has created some entities, if we may use that term, within your game that are actually steering the game from place to place, depending on where you're located. So if you are feeling powerless, the only thing we would say, because obviously we could say, well, like the easiest way to do it is to remove the the, the ones that are creating your issue and make sure that they fall, and then you can collect your power back. But this is not how this game is operating, unfortunately, not at the moment. So in order to feel less powerless, what we could advise is to start within your scale, right? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you are exhausting yourself because you're looking at everything on a bigger scale within your realm, and you are feeling complete powerless because you may be at the time, because you are trying to somehow, that's the last step of the ladder, and it is not possible because your arm can't reach it. But what you can do, and this is very much underestimated, what you can do is to start embracing your level. Meaning, let's say, you feel powerless when you're looking at the bigger scale and everything that is happening in the world. Okay, what can you do in your daily life that you're not powerless about? Let's say you can help within your family cell, you can help within your friendship cell, you can help within your basically environmental self. You can somehow be kind to yourself to start with, so it would trigger to be kind to themselves into other. Like, this is going to be very hard for us to voice it because it's so obvious that we don't even know how to articulate it, but it's basically just in front of your own door, right? So make sure that what is coming out of your mouth is a perfect reflection of what you want the word to be, right? Make sure that the
Mm-hmm.
way you're treating yourself
And the way you're treating other is a perfect reflection of how you want to be treated. Make sure that what you are passing on in terms of knowledge and information to your surrounding is a perfect reflection of what you want to be passed on to you and passed on to the world. It's basically whatever you are not liking about your playtime right now, whatever you wish to be taken out, right? Start at your own door. So make sure that what you don't want to see or what you don't want to be submissive to is not at all put back out by yourself. Do you know what we're trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do.
So if you are feeling powerless because you don't like this and this and this and this, then make sure that you're not making your surrounding powerless because you're acting this and this and this, because you're wording this and this and this, because you're behaving this and this and this, or because you're not doing this and this and this, right? So start on your scale at your level and clean yourself and dust your door. That's pretty much the best picture we could have for you right now, because it's so easy sometimes to look at the bigger scale, knowing that you cannot really change it right now, just doing this, because somehow it would give you excuses not to do anything at the level that you can be active. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this will be a good way to start. And we do not have magical wand that we say, oh, well, let us interfere. We're going to do this and everything is going to be smooth and bubbly and loving. It doesn't work like this. The game evolved. The game is what it is now. The avatars evolved. The avatars are what it is now. But what one avatar can do once it gets conscious and once it starts to ask itself, I don't want to live in this world. It makes me feel powerless and sad, and I don't want this, and I don't want to pass this on to the next generation. Then the really impactful data that they can put out is if they cleaned up their own computer, if they cleaned up their own game. And believe when we say that, sometimes people will be like, oh, that's so easy. No, it's not. It is not easy. And we're pretty sure that if everybody is honest to the point of 100% honest with himself, their world at their level is not clean. There is always something that could be bettered or that could be cleaner. There's always a way, because remember, the emotional layer is so strong. So there's always a way that they are reacting to something that next time they could act and not react and act better or adjust themselves. This is what we're talking about when start on your level. We are all fragile in a way, and we are all sensitive to everything that is giving to us. So there will be moments where we do know that we're supposed to say this or act like this in order to be portraying what we would like to receive. But because we are feeling this and this and this today, and we're not in a mood, this is a good expression, then we're not going to do this. We're going to do the complete opposite. Put this on a bigger scale, right? With institution that has power over others, then this is exactly what's happening. So what you're now criticizing, this is exactly what you're doing on your smaller level. Just because you were not in the mood and you didn't want to deal with this today, then you acted like this. And if you're honest with yourself and you look at it for what it is, you'll be like, oh yeah, I surely did. And this is what we call cleaning your own doorstep. And if everybody starts to do that, then it escalates, because it's a lot of clean doors now, right? A lot of clean doors. You see everything around you being clean. What you want to do, you want to clean yours. This is pretty much what it is. So it escalates and it becomes way bigger than you think it could be, just focusing on your scale. Does that make sense?
It does.
It doesn't mean that you're going to change the world tomorrow. It means that somehow, if the bigger picture of the world is still shitty, if you can witness your fellow avatars living a shitty life and you cannot do nothing about it and you feel powerless, then at least change your focus. Instead of looking always constantly out and broadcasting on a very bigger scale, take a pause on that. You can come back to this later. It will still exist. Take a pause on that and then zoom in and look, okay, have I cleaned up my door today? Have I cleaned up my mouth, the way I speak? Have I cleaned up my behavior? Have I cleaned up my action? Have I manifested what I want the world to bring me back? Have I given back out what I want to bring in? If you can answer yes to all those questions, all of a sudden you're going to feel very powerful. First of all, you're going to feel very good about yourself, and you're going to put a smile on your face. Then you can go back and look at the bigger picture and feel shitty again. And every time you feel shitty and powerless, then go back to this. And you'll see that when you do that, somehow, because what you're putting back out is exactly what you want to receive on a daily matter, on your scale, this is exactly what you're going to bring in. And your world somehow is going to shift little by little, and it's going to spread out on a spectrum where it might not be the biggest picture because you have institution in place, but at least you never know. It might end up somehow becoming a bigger scale, because what you could clean in your house, then you can clean in your neighborhood, then you can clean in your city. You know what we're saying? Okay.
Right.
So this is exactly what we believe needs to be done. If you are not pleased, and if you feel powerless, and if you're not happy with how the world is today, well, your world starts where your world starts. You know what we're saying?
Yeah.
So you have to start small instead of wanting to fight all the way big. Yes?
Yes.
And also, it will resonate as an authentic stuff, because let's say if you have a speech that is saying, yes, I don't like what is happening today in the world. I don't like how it is. It makes me sick to my stomach and yada, yada, yada. But inside of your household, you're doing stuff that are basically not matching this frequency, right? It's not resonating with what you're saying. So you're not authentic in yourself, because you're pointing out fingers on, let's say, this is very aggressive, this is very intrusive, there's no communication, there is like violence and this and this. But then inside your household, you'll look at yourself and you're like, oh man, I was rude. I was kind of violent in my way of speaking. I was violent in my action. I watch violent stuff in movies and all this stuff. Basically, you would be able to witness that what you are saying is not authentic to what you are embodying and experiencing. Does that make sense?
A lot.
And authenticity is the key to make sure that everything outside is resonating with your inside and is matching what you want. So if every avatar is playing a game being inauthentic, you can imagine this is a disaster. So what you can do is trying to return to this authenticity and be in agreement within yourself that you will not point fingers at others unless you cleaned up after you point the finger at you. Yeah.
Right.
So because we've witnessed this so many times. Oh, I don't like this. Look at what they're doing. Look at how it is. Look at, okay. But have you looked at your world, like meaning your small world, right? Your everyday. Have you looked at it? Yes or no? Okay. Can you pinpoint everything that is not resonating with what your intention is for this world? And can you clean it? If you can answer yes to all of those questions, and you'll see that somehow you'll feel less in despair than what you are feeling now.
Thank you so much. I think that's an excellent point to make.
Perfect.
And I think it's very grounding as well, because I can relate to feeling overwhelmed in or by today's world. I grew up in the 1980s and 90s on our timeline, and it may also be due to the fact that I was younger, but I felt that at the time the world was more peaceful, simpler, a nicer place to be in. And over the last few decades, it seemed that things have escalated really quickly.
Yeah,
And so And so I can relate to those who feel overwhelmed by what's been going on. And so I think your advice is really, really wonderful here, because everyone can do that. They can all start. We can all start with our own doorstep, as you said.
And because you have a nice saying about wolves. Are you familiar with that? That there is two wolves, like one that you qualify as bad, right? So yes,
Right.
and you don't like,
Yeah.
and one qualified as good. So basically, as everything you do like, because you know how we feel about good and bad. So we are making sure that we're putting frame of reference into it. So basically, the one that is going to prevail is the one that you're feeding, right? So when you are feeling powerless because you're looking at the world with a like specific lens, you're feeding that wolf somehow. If you are trying to feed the other wolf, it doesn't mean that you are not acknowledging that this bad wolf is here. All right. It is here.
Right.
We're not saying just ignore the misery of the world and be completely selfish and only look into your belly button. This is not what we're saying. But what we're saying is that you know that this wolf is here. You know that at this time, this moment, the fact that you're feeding it is making you miserable and completely desperate, and you're not liking it. Okay, then you do know that there's another wolf that exists as well. Feed this one. When the word is too much, when you cannot take what's going on, just try to shut it down. If you're lucky enough that you're not living physically in your physicality where the shit is happening, right? If you are lucky enough that you have a shelter that is safe, that you have a cocoon, that you have a small world that is still intact, if you are too much feeding the bad wolf that is making you miserable, make sure to acknowledge the good wolf. The simple fact that you will acknowledge that you're blessed enough not to be located in this area, that you're blessed enough having a shelter, that you're blessed enough having this, like gratitude, this would feed the nice wolf. And then somehow it will shift your focus and you will not feel that despair and that disgust and powerless anymore. You will feel empowered. You will feel blessed. You will feel grateful. You will feel good marks. You will feel everything basically that you want the word to be. And it's okay to take a minute in your day and look at this instead of this. It's not because you're not looking 24/7 at what's happening in your world that you're a bad person that is not acknowledging, that is not sympathizing with it. You can't escape it. You can't avoid it. It's there. You know it's there. What we're saying is, if you're blessed enough not to have to live it in your physicality, just embrace that power somehow. Just embrace that blessing and embrace the fact that you are safe and that you have good stuff, that you can still feed this nice wolf. Do you see what we're trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah, because believe us, when you are living in your physicality where the real shit is, right? If this is your daily life, it becomes very hard to feed the nice wolf. But if you look at it, this is exactly what they're doing. People living this daily, they're constantly feeding the nice wolf because otherwise it's unbearable.
Right.
So if they are doing their parts, feeding the nice wolf as much as they can, and you are blessed not to be in this area and not to have to deal with it firsthand, the least you can do in order to support this beauty somehow is to feed your nice wolf as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel that this connects in a way back to what you were explaining in earlier episodes about the food intake.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And maybe moderating it or filtering it or making more conscious decisions regarding what to take in. Because we do live in a world where you can be bombarded 24 hours with what's happening everywhere. And I assume that can make it hard to focus back on your own world where you have control and can find that power.
Yes. But are you bombarded because you're actually physically bombarded? Or are you bombarded because you have, let's say, tools like phone, like media, TV, like social medias, like newspaper, or like even friends and family that are bombarding you with this kind of information? Because you can shut this down. You have actually the power, because you're not actually physically bombarded. You can tell them, I don't want to hear that today. I don't want to talk about this today. I want to focus on my flower that is growing in my garden, for instance. I don't want to turn on the TV if this is what's going to be fed to me. I don't want to turn on the radio. I don't want to read the newspaper. You have the possibility to build walls so you are not actually bombarded 24/7. If you want to be bombarded at one point because you want to be aware of what's going on, by all means, take it all in. Feel as much as you can, send empathy as much as you can to your fellow avatars that are actually, living this one on the physical realm. But if you are not, just embrace the gift that you've been given, that you are not living it, and you have many ways to focus on other stuff. And again, we're not saying dismiss it and then don't even pay attention to it. No, we're saying when you have enough energy and when you want to be aware of it and when you want to feed that wolf and see what's going on and send your love to the fellow avatars that are actually suffering from it, instead of feeding off your anger and stuff, just try to switch in your heart and send love. And well, depending on which team you're playing for, of course. But apparently we are feeling that you're playing a specific team, and then the followers or the people that are going to listen to this will probably relate more to this team. So basically, we'll say, instead of feeding with anger, with sadness, with everything, just make sure that your sadness, your anger, and everything starts from love and not just a reaction to something that would be feeding your bad wolf. Yeah. So when
Yeah.
you want to feel sad, just feel sad because you're sending so much love to those people that you can empathize with them, not just because you just want to feel sad and be like, oh, the world is shitty. I hate this one. Not this. Just try when you can to have meaning into what you're gonna feed yourself with and react to. So we're not saying shut the door and then be completely unaware of what's happening. We're saying when you open it, make sure that this door is open and whatever is going to be taken in, the way you integrate it and put it back out has an positive impact, has an impact that will give you a little power for a minute, because even if you're not able to change it, then at least you can somehow take a moment and then hold space for everything that is affected by it, and then hold space and love for it. And believe us, if you do that, it will be already a little smoother, right? And if you have that possibility of not being physically in it, make sure that at one point you shut the door when you feel it's too much and say, no, this is not what I want to be faced with today. This is not what I want to fed myself with. I know it's there and it makes me feel a certain way. And in order to make sure that I'm participating to the world that I want to have in the end, then I'm going to focus myself on what I call good wolf or nice wolf in my life. And I'm going to clean and dust my door. And I'm going to make sure I'm trying my best to be the best version of myself, to apply, even if it's hard at first, but to apply what my intention is for this world. And then to make sure that I feed myself with everything that will make me hold this lovely vibration instead of putting me down, right? So this
Right.
is for you to juggle with both, because if you do not want to ignore it, then by all means acknowledge what's happening. If you're only living in this world on a daily matter, this is another story. But if it's not yours on a daily matter, if it's just what you're witnessing, then please, please acknowledge also your gratitude, and then try to build your small world as beautiful as you can build it. Because if everybody does the same, this is how you would exponentially change on a bigger scale. Does that make sense?
A lot.
Okay. It's
Yes.
it's also, like if you line up some matches, right?
Mhm.
And then you start the first matches, it's gonna the fire is gonna spread towards, right? But you pull one back down. Can you see that picture?
Yes.
Okay. You pull one back down, so it's stepping away, and somehow the fire stopped.
Right.
The others are not touched.
Yeah.
You're living in the physical world, right? So physicality applies to your world as well. So sometimes stepping out is not a bad thing, according to your frame of reference in terms of bad. It's not a bad thing. It's actually powerful because it will prevent every other matches to be lit, right?
Right.
So remember, the world is big in your playtime. There are some stuff that you cannot, unfortunately, tackle and change like this on a bigger scale. But you can change everything like this in your own scale. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
This is where you start. And then it will escalate. It will escalate. And next thing you know, your little action or your little changes or your little world open its door and is now a bigger world. It's not as big as the one you want to change, maybe, but it's already way bigger than what you started with. And then you can feel powerful.
Right. Thank you so much. That's a great reminder and also a great confirmation, I would like to say, because at the beginning of this project, we said that the main goal or the main intention is to raise vibration, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned earlier, like a certain element of hierarchy in our world.
Yes.
And I felt that the elements at the top, the institutions, the governments, whatever, companies, that a lot of them play for the other team. Let's say it that way. And so I've always felt that the raising of the vibration, that the other team has to come from the bottom, so to speak, that we call it a grassroots movement.
Yes.
And it kind of, like what you were just explaining, it kind of confirms that.
Yes.
In my view.
Because you have to root it somewhere.
Right.
And if you're just projecting out and never in, you're not rooted anything. You're just like, how can we explain that? Nothing is grounded, nothing is rooted. So it's just like sent out. But okay, you have flowers, right? You have a nice bouquet and you're giving out your flowers. You're giving. Okay. First of all, once you're giving all your flowers from your bouquet, you have no more flowers to give. And then because those flowers were not grounded or rooted, they're going to die in a few days, right?
Right.
Okay. If you want to be able to give a lot of flowers at any point, at any time, any year, right? Again and again and again and again, you want to grow flowers in your garden. You root them. You make sure that you treat them well. You make sure that you grow beautiful flowers. And then you have a lot to give every year. Yes?
Yes.
Same.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've been talking about the playtime a lot today, the world, so to speak, in quotation marks. And very often when we do that, we refer to the system that has been constructed, right, by avatars.
Yes.
And I would like to focus on the actual world for a moment, the physical planet we live on.
Yes.
And I mentioned earlier that when looking out into the world, and now I mean like the system, right? Media and stuff like that.
Yes.
One could get an idea easily that the planet is not in a good state and that nature is suffering a lot. And I was wondering, what advice do you have for those who feel deeply connected to the planet or want to feel more connected, what can they do to help the planet in its existence, to make it better in a way, if that makes sense?
It would probably match the answer that we gave earlier. Clean up your own door. Is going to be applicable to pretty much everything. First of all, if you are caring for the planet, then it maybe gain knowledge on what will be appropriate or what will be good for this planet, right? And then next time, once you have this information, then make sure you integrate it and you put it back out. So let's say if you know that this is not good for the planet because it's pollution or because this the chemical that is going to be then put back in the ocean or yada yada yada. There's tons of stuff that we can take because it's a lot talked about.
Right.
Then make sure that inside of your household you're not using those. That's the first step. See, because this is this is where the duality and the the conflict lies within humans, and we are finding this mesmerizing and marvelous. You would take a human that is full of good intention, right? And that would be, yes, I would like to take care of my planet. I want to be ecological. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be this. But yet, I like to enjoy a certain comfort, a certain way of living, and a certain type of food that would not match my intention. Do you know what we're talking about? And we're not making a
Yes.
list because the list is so big and it's so diverse that it will take too much time. This is accessible on a human scale, right? So we're not gonna
Right.
list everything. But basically, if you are trying to get the planet better, but then you want to be you want to be a house owner, right? And you want to build a house, and you want to build a house that it has a lot of concrete that is going to prevent the floor from breathing and prevent the species living in the floor from existing and all this stuff. Then you already see there's a conflict right there, right? Because you said that you want to be saving the planet in one end, but in another end, you want to be in the comfort of a home, and then you want your home to be built a certain way that this way is already not matching your intention. Yeah?
Yeah.
For example. Or like if you are wanting to preserve the planet, but then you like to take long baths, right? On an everyday level. Okay.
Mhm.
We're not saying this is right or wrong. We're just saying that you have to clean your house, meaning that whatever your intention or whatever your saying is, then you have to match your saying and your intention in your action and in your decision and your choices that you took every day. So if you are like wanting to save the planet and you know that maybe consuming too much water is not good for this planet, and then you're still taking bath every day, then there is already a discordance within what your intention and your saying is and what your action is, right? Same thing in your
Right.
food. If you have a company that is working with a lot of chemicals or that is growing with a lot of pesticide and stuff like this, and then you are addicted to a certain processed food because you love those snackers or whatever, and you love them so much and it makes you feel good to eat it, there's no problem with that. But then you know that this is not feeding your vision of having a better planet, right? So
Right.
this is all of this duality. Yes, my main priority is I want to participate to the healing of the planet. Then make sure you change the habits and somehow change sometimes a certain comfort that you're used to or a certain type of feeding, and we're talking nutrition or drinking habits or hygiene habits or even like the products that you're using to clean and sanitize, like all this stuff, consumption of electricity, like your consumption of gas, like the way you're traveling, like all of this can be really take into consideration if you want to help the planet. Like there is so many range that you can have a positive impact on, but the thing is, when one is trying to say, "Oh, I want to protect the planet," but then is looking at what you have to change in your daily life, like, no, I don't want to do this because I like this. I'm comfortable with this. I don't want to change that. No, I like this way too much." When there is no match in terms of resonance, it's not coherent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when we say clean your door, if you say, I want the planet to be safe and I want the planet to be good. I want the world to be without war and I want the world to be full of love and stuff. Then make sure you clean your door and you clean yourself to resonate with those, and that every action, choices, and everything that you're going to do from now on is matching this. Does that make sense? And not
Hello.
just matching when it's convenient or when it's still comfortable for you. Or if you have like reached that conclusion that, okay, I wish I could be good at doing this, but unfortunately, I have to be honest with myself. And right now, I like this too much. I want to keep enjoying this and I want to keep this comfort, and I'm not ready to change those habits. Then be honest. And there's nothing wrong into that. It's just at least you're coherent. You're like, I wish I could be like this, but unfortunately, I know I'm not there yet. And then this is actually way more helpful in raising your frequency, because you're being authentic and you're being honest, and whatever you're actually putting out is reflecting of what's within. Yes.
Right.
And then it gives you somewhere to go and grow from. So it's better in terms of raising your frequency to be authentic with yourself, saying, I wish I could do this. I wish I could participate more to help the planet. Unfortunately, right now, I am not ready yet, but maybe I can pick one element and I'm going to improve this. Yes. So tomorrow I'll be better at this. And once this element is actually nailed and done and is part of your daily life, then you know you better and you started to clean your own world, correct? So therefore, you're not participating a little less into planet destruction and a little more into planet preservation, and your authenticity is still okay, right? Sometimes what you want to be or what you're expecting yourself to be is not yet matching your reality, because you're not ready yet to sacrifice on some stuff, or you're not ready yet to prioritize some other stuff. And it's okay with it. Just be aware and mindful of where you at as well. There's always room to grow. What will be detrimental to your raising in frequency is if you have a dissonance between what you're saying and what you're pretending to be and what you really are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of what one can do towards saving the planet, first of all, nature will rebel itself, and it started already, right? The planet is one of the most powerful being ever. Okay. So nature is taking its own matter and its own reality at hands, and it's being like, okay, F it. I'm tired of it. I'm going to show it to you. Okay. And there's nothing that will stop me, because I'm the planet. I'm the biggest being in my planet right now. I mean, in myself. It's me, and I'm going to clean my own door, right? Because it's true for her too. She's like, hey, oh, hell no. I'm going to clean my own door. This is not working for me no more. Woof. And then at one point, if she really decided to clean, there is nothing that will be able to be done, okay? Because she is the most powerful being out of all the stuff in it, correct?
Right.
Yes. So what you can do now is up to you. It's really up to you. Everybody can do something at their level. It's just look for the list, look what you can change, look what be less detrimental, and decide to act and start changing your world in order to match her. And then maybe, you'll not be able to match everything that she needs, and be okay with it, but just have the intention to get better and then as good as you can be within your experience here. So at least you can feel better about yourself, that you're trying to participate as much as you can to her recovering, or at least not damaging her as much. And if you cannot completely 100% do it, then maybe be okay with that. Now, if you are 100%, I'm going to do it because I got her back and I am completely okay with changing all my way of living, my habits and everything. This is what I do. This is my priority. Then go for it. As long as there is a cohesive pattern between what you're saying or what you're pointing finger out and what your world is, then you're good. Right? Good quote marks, of course. The problem lingers when there is a dissonance. And especially, and this is probably good to hear too, the biggest issue, because let's say you can raise your frequency if you're honest and authentic to yourself, even if you're not a saint regarding planet care, right? But because we're in that window of the planet care, so we're going to stay in it just for the sake of it. So
Okay.
you're not there yet. Well, you're there. Kudos to you. Yeah, this is perfect. You're not there yet. You're aware and you're acknowledging that you're not there yet, and you're going to intend to better yourself. Kudos to you. Frequency keeps on rising, right? You're not there yet, but you're not acknowledging that you're not there yet, and you pretend to be there yet. Issue, red flag. Frequency are probably not going to rise. They might be stagnant. They might just like drop down a bit, but they are not going to raise. That's for sure. Not on that level. They can raise on other aspects of your existence, but not on that level. So there will be a dissonance and a disharmony, if we can use that term. But the worst you can do is being inauthentic and then pointing fingers and then be judging of the others, right? Let's say I pretend I am all for the planet care. My action and my door is not clean. My own word is not reflecting what I pretend to be. And on top of that, so on top of being a fraud, it's a little harsh word, but inauthentic, I'm going to point at fingers and I'm going to yell at others or at the world for not doing this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Red flag. Red flag. Red flag. Because we believe there is one author that wrote about something that looks like clean up your door, which is the Toltec agreement. Reese. It wrote like something about having a clean way of speaking, right? Not in terms of like you don't cuss and stuff, in terms of whatever comes out of your mouth is a proper reflection of your own word, right?
Right.
This is the same. You cannot come from a word within that is looking a certain way and then speak out of a word that is completely different and that is completely inaccurate compared to the word that's within. Yes? This is not okay. This will never be okay. This will actually be detrimental to yourself because it will not allow you to somehow raise your frequency. Unless, because you need exceptions, unless you are 100% convinced that you are your word, your door is clean. So that everything that you're pretending to be, that clearly we can witness you are not, but you are convinced that you are. This is different.
In the sense of delusion?
In a sense of you are lying to yourself without knowing you're lying to yourself. In a sense of, okay, I'm a human body, right? And I feel like I'm participating to protecting the planet, right? But every day, instead of walking to get my bread when I can, I'm going to take my diesel and I'm going to drive to it back and forth every day. Okay. But in my own head, this is nothing. This is not prejudicing the planet. I am not feeding the destruction of the planet. I am participating to saving it, right? And I'm convinced of that because I'm unaware or I choose not to believe that this action is somehow ruining it. And then I'm going to have all other stuff in my life that are actually showing that I care for it and I'm going to do good by her. But this little one, I don't see it being against her. And I'm convinced that I'm not cheating because I feel like my door is clean. So this is another story. Because now it's like you have a distorted vision of yourself and a distorted vision of your own world, and you are missing some accuracy in how you're perceiving your world, right?
Right.
But because you're not aware you're missing it, and we took this as an example, but it could be many, because you're not aware of missing it, this is not as problematic as if you were aware and you would speak differently. Do you grasp the subtlety?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Okay. So the more awareness you have, the more responsibility somehow you have to be in your own authenticity in terms of what you're expecting the word to be. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that answer
Well,
your question?
it does. Yes. Thank you so much for bringing in the authenticity aspect. That's often overlooked, I
Yes.
feel. And especially in combination with the acceptance aspect you mentioned too,
Yes.
because I know that humans tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves when it
They
comes
do.
to, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do because the human aspect sometimes they want to be like perfect. Like perfect to the word. They want to be this without flaws, like without fault, like with everything right. But first of all, it has not been designed like this, because if you're perfect, there is no room for creativity and it's complicated, right? So, first of all, it's never going to be perfect. But the simple fact that your intention is to better yourself, this is a gem right there. If you can see with honesty and not like we were portraying before, like you have no clue of, no awareness of where you're at, of how dusty you are or not. If you have a pretty good idea and a pretty good vision of your own word, and you know what's dusty, what's clean, and what needs to be done, and you're okay with that, let's say, I'm at this point and I'm okay with this. I have room to grow, and then I will do my best to grow as much as I can during my experience in this playtime. This is exactly what the set of mind that would keep on raising your frequency.
Right. Yeah.
It's not because you're perfect right away that, oh, I'm perfect, my frequency is up to the roof, you know? It's not like that. The intention of getting better is actually of quality.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I also feel that what you were explaining regarding the dissonance between intention and action, right?
Yeah.
It circles back to what you were describing earlier in today's conversation about the importance of application.
Yes. Yes, it is.
That this world is made for action, right? You said in an earlier conversation, and that without application, knowledge and intention
is worthless in your realm.
Right.
It's worthy in ours, but it's worthless in yours. Hey, I mean, you cannot have it all, right? You're experiencing an amazing game. You cannot have it all.
Yeah. Okay, we accept that.
Good.
And apparently we chose it, so.
Apparently so.
Well, Rufus, thank you so much. We've reached the end of today's conversation.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that this is the last conversation. Definitely not. We will continue. But as mentioned earlier, we are closing the first season cycle here today.
Yes.
And I feel that you've done a wonderful job again of touching a lot of important points, connecting them back to what we've already discussed. And so I think this is a worthy ending to the project so far.
Perfect.
Is there anything you would like to say or state or add as a message to the listeners out there who have been following our project for the entire season?
Well, we can surely express our gratitude, because we are well aware that, first of all, witnessing this can be a little weird, quote marks, if you're not already familiar with transmission and the way it's conveyed or the way it's done. So first of all, kudos to everybody that was listening for not freaking out and then, turning off. So thank you very much for coming on board with this. Thank you for calling upon us, because you do remember that if we have no requirement or no calling on your end, then pretty much we are not able to interfere, right? So we are very pleased that you both decided to hop on this journey, and that all of the other participants that are making this journey what it is are chosen to come and witness those conversations. And we are very, very pleased with the fact that some humans are curious and bring awareness to, let's say, obvious matter to us, but obviously not so obvious to you. And that would bring a broader spectrum on understanding perhaps this playtime that we love so much. And we are sensing that everybody involved in this project is genuinely trying to cherish and better this playtime. And this is very pleasing to us, because it's a very, very dear playtime to us, and we would love to preserve it as much as we can. So the simple fact that you are all willing to better yourself, because we believe that this is what the common factor on everybody involved with it is better yourself, and therefore better your own experience within this playtime. This is very pleasing to us, because believe it or not, it is not that obvious that an avatar will be willing to better itself. It will be willing to better the condition of the game for sure, but not necessarily thinking or seeing that is linked directly to themselves. So kudos to you all for acknowledging your responsibility in this playtime and for owning it pretty much. And we want to thank you for sticking with us and our weird way sometimes to convey what we are knowing through your words. That could be very challenging. We cannot wait until your playtime develop telepathy, because it will be way easier. But for the time being, we are very pleased of your company, and we are very thankful for having us and giving us your trust, because this is very important for those conversations to be taking place. If we do not have your trust, they are worthless. So thank you very much, and we are excited for next season then.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rufus.
You're welcome.
And I know we'll speak again very soon.
Yes.
All right. We thank Rufus and all other beings involved for the information and support they have been giving us today. With much love and deep gratitude, we're asking all energies and entities to recede to where they reside. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my Transformative Soul Journeys Quantum Hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy-to-follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com.